Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's time for the Brown Sports Bag from the Heart of the Barrens, a weekly local sports machine on ESPN Radio 1230. Alongside John Butler, here's your host, James Brown.
Well, John, we got a brief intro there from the fine guys at Paul Feinbaum. Then we had to tell them they needed to go on a break for a little while so we could get in here and talk a little bit about things like the Kentucky Derby, some high school baseball and softball. The softball district tournament is set. The baseball seeding is still up in the air, but we do know when Barron County will play just because of graduation being on May 20th. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the NBA playoffs, and we'll finish this off with some legal analysis or something from the federal case against college basketball. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started with Kentucky Derby. I guess that's the most controversial Kentucky Derby finish ever, maybe.
Yeah, in our lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was a horse that was 40, 50 years ago that was disqualified after the fact.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like days later.
Yeah, he was juicing.
That's right. So that if that happened today, that'd be real big.
All right.
With social media. So this is it was. Tell you what, it was for horse racing. It was an incredible. Oftentimes, controversy puts you in the spotlight, and we've done this show for going on 3 years and never talked about horse racing.
Yeah, just barely.
And it's been the lead on most radio shows and things like that. Actually, the ratings got the highest rating of any sporting event this year, except for the NFL playoffs.
Is that right?
Is higher than the Final Four, the Masters, and everything. It got I think 11.
Wow.
Which was huge rating, and a lot of it is driven by the controversy and things like that. But a monster racing, monster rating, which is tremendous for horse racing. Actually,
I would really love to know when the dial-in time for that rise is.
I don't know, but I saw they listed the ratings for the event, and whether it's right after the race or right during the race, that's pretty good. You get 11 share of the market is a huge rating.
And so basically what happened was, and you were there, right, for the event? So basically what happened for all the people who were not there or watching it on TV, the horse that won was disqualified because of a move that the horse had made, and I guess really the jockey had made with the horse, back with like a quarter mile to go, is that right?
Yeah, around the turn coming home.
Yeah, and so basically cut in front of another horse, two other horses, as it works out. And then I read a story about this and looked at some tape of it and the stills of it that kind of laid out what happened as far as why the penalty, the assessment of the penalty, why it was assessed. But the process for doing it is kind of fascinating because from what I understood, and you can correct any part of this that I get wrong, someone has to basically file a complaint.
Didn't have to. It can be a rider's objection, it can be a trainer's objection, or the stewards can just put an instant inquiry up, which means they saw it right then, and they don't even need to be alerted by anybody else.
Now, in this case, there was a jockey complaint basically about two jockeys complained, and so then the stewards, there are three of them, they go to the tape, I suppose.
That's correct.
And they review the portion of it that the complaint is filed for. And in this particular case, they decided that the jockey did lead the horse into the front of these others, and because of that, and it was a quick turnaround in terms of disqualification, because as you mentioned previously, the horse, it was much later that the disqualification occurred.
It was a 20-minute delay, which is long in horse racing standards, but it is the Kentucky Derby. It's the most important race going.
Yeah. And
there's never been a horse disqualified other than the one I just mentioned in the history of the race. So it was it was a big deal, and my gut at first was that I didn't think he'd be taken down because of the races with 20 horses. It's normally bumping and things like that, and I didn't at first blush see it. And that was a horse I picked. It was Maximum Security. I actually had a small bet on that horse. So but the longer the delay, I knew something was up. And I think they got it 100% right because once I started watching the reviews and I saw the NBC slow motion and so forth.
Well, real quick, while you're at the track, are you able to see?
I was at the
views?
simulcast of the track. I wasn't at church for
okay.
that, so I was at another facility watching it.
Got you.
And the more I watched it, I could tell that was a serious infraction. And luckily, horse racing is lucky that that horse did not go down because he ran right. He cut him. It's almost like you got the square in Glasgow.
Yeah.
And if you're on the inside of the square, going around the inside, and you don't look, and you just decide I'm just going to take the second lane on the outside, and you don't look, and you have a car coming right up on you. That's exactly what happened, where he just took somebody else's lane. And of course, also the difference between horses and cars is they don't have brakes.
Yeah.
And he ran right. He took another horse's direct path. And if you see the slow motion, the horse that was coming behind him, I think his name was War of Will.
Yeah.
Went actually, his front legs went inside the back legs of Maximum Security. It's a miracle he didn't fall, because if those two horses fell, there'd been 15 right on top of it.
Yeah, and I think the War of Will jockey said he had to struggle to maintain control.
I don't see. I think it's a miracle that there was not a fall, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah.
So once that happens, the delay, the big delay is where do you put the winner?
Yeah.
Maximum Security.
Yeah, what slot does he wind up in?
And by the rules of racing, what happens is you put the horse that made the interference goes behind the horses that he interfered with. War of Will ended up being, I think, 7th, and the other one, which is Long Range Toddy, ended up being 17. They both just basically just had to completely stop. So that means the only thing you can do is move the winner all the way behind the 17th.
Yeah.
What's tough about the call is, other than people who thought they'd won lost, what's tough about the call is I think the best horse was Maximum Security.
Right.
I think he was the best horse, and you'd like to see the best horse win. Country House, who ran second, had every opportunity to go by him and couldn't. He was the second best horse that day. He could not go by that horse.
Yeah.
And he was really not affected in any way, I didn't think. But that was the right call. It was a gutsy call to do that, but that was the right call. But the controversies, the anger, and oftentimes, and I told you this beforehand, the people who are angry the most, what I've listened on talk radio is sometimes casual people who don't know a lot about it. They're mad a bit, but if you know about horse racing, that call is made quite often.
Right.
Obviously, if you bet money on the horse, those people are angry too.
Yeah.
But it was really, I thought it was the right call. But that's kind of the world we live in right now. And it's social media driven a lot, but we're mad at referees all the time. I mean, unbelievable angry over NBA referees, college basketball referees, NFL officials.
Yeah.
And this is just another list of people that we're just, seems like we're getting madder and madder, or maybe we vent more and more, have avenues to vent, but it seems to be that right now that is the thing to do.
We don't really like for people who are put in a position to analyze, observe, and make a decision about a circumstance. We don't like for them to tell us we might be wrong.
Well, yeah, and it's becoming harder and harder. I say this about politics too. We don't want to get in politics on this show, but why would anybody want to be in it?
Yeah.
Why would somebody want to be a referee? Why would somebody want to be a steward and subject yourself to the not only the criticism that comes with it, but accusing you of fixing the race or fixing the game or blah blah blah. I mean, it's the visceral is incredible right now.
Well, and the money part is one of the things that was brought up to me at least a couple of times since Sunday, that somebody must have gotten paid.
Well, people don't understand the track. It doesn't matter to the track who wins.
Right.
They've
already won.
They get their cut, and it's called pari-mutuel betting. They just divide the pool. It doesn't matter who wins. If a favorite wins, the same amount of money goes out to the bettors as if the horse that was 80-1. It doesn't matter to the track. They have no interest in who wins or loses. None.
Well, I think the inclination or the the implication was that the three stewards were getting paid by
That's just-
Country House or whatever,
Yeah.
or something like this,
That's
which.
stupid. It's just ridiculous.
Well,
Yeah.
and as I pointed out to them, one thing is, first of all, I'm not a big fan of conspiracy theories. I
Yeah.
do believe in cover-ups where people are
Yeah.
embarrassed or they've made a mistake, and it'll ruin their reputation, or they think it will if they admit their mistake. I fully believe in that.
Do you know why we have public trials? Public trials are not for the benefit of the public; it's for the benefit of the accused.
Yeah,
Because it's public, you're less apt to get cheated.
yeah,
Right there, everything was transparent.
yeah.
At the I mean, you had the replays. You saw the stewards on TV. Looking at it, it was as transparent gets.
Yeah. Well, and so as I was pointing out to them, as I started walking through the numbers, I said, think about this for a minute. Not only would you have to pay the three stewards, you
Yeah.
would have to pay the two jockeys.
Yeah, it's just-
you'd have to pay members of the Kentucky Horse Racing Commission, people at Churchill Downs that run the races and that
Yeah,
kind of
it's-
stuff. It'd be a big pool of
it's-
money you'd have to give out to actually fix a race
Well,
like that.
it's just wasting your breath to argue with people like that.
Well, I mean, they kind of came around, I think,
Yeah.
but we'll see.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
But the thing also though is, and there sidebar here real quick. The executive director of the Kentucky Horse Racing Commission is Mark Guilfoyle, who's from Glasgow, and he was quoted in a story on a horse racing kind of dedicated site that he reviewed, that he saw what they looked at and they made the right choice.
It was the right choice.
And the other thing was, he pointed out that he wasn't sure that there was really an appeals process because Gary West, the owner of Maximum Security, said they were going to appeal the ruling.
Yeah, they can go to federal court if they want it. They want that, and all that would do was tie up the purse distribution. If they want to do that, he's going to lose. He's mad right now. I saw his interview too. Churchill Downs is greedy. That's why they have 20.
Yeah.
That's why they have 20 horses. It's too many horses. Well, go to Europe, and Europe is where everybody likes the European races. Well, they have 20 to 30 horses.
Yeah.
There are fouls when there's 5 horses. there's
Well, somebody's always trying to get the inside track because that's the closest one to the finish line.
So he's mad and angry. I understand he's upset.
Yeah.
He thought he'd won and he didn't win. I understand that, but there's a lot of hot air being blown, a lot of steam, and he can go to federal court if he wants to. It won't help. It won't help the bettors who thought they'd won.
Yeah.
Because that's you're
not getting your money back.
That money's gone.
Yeah.
It's the only thing they can fight over is the distribution of the purse money.
Meanwhile, though, some people did put money on a 65-1 horse, and
Sure.
they are happy as
Absolutely.
the day is long now.
That's correct. Now the question is, the people who are reasonable are the ones who can, regardless of if you bet or you didn't bet, or if you have the winner or you got taken down, can you throw away that emotionally and just say that's the right call?
Been kind of difficult for many people in many circumstances these days. But one last thing.
It's like when your team loses.
Yeah.
You're right now. The instinct is you got cheated.
Well, and look, the other day we were at a stakeout. That's what I called it, because we were doing a remote over in Bowling Green for a guy who was selling steaks. So anyway, one of my coworkers asked me about what teams I rooted for, and I told her, I said, I don't really root for anybody. She took it as meaning I didn't like sports.
Right.
Because apparently you have to be emotionally disturbed in order to root for a team these days. I
Yeah.
didn't realize you could just be a reasonable human being.
Yes.
But the thing is like, through years of covering sports, what I learned is that I don't really care about the teams anymore. There are people I care about. There are players I like.
I agree with that. I'm that way in a lot of ways.
Yeah, so I mean, I have a favoritism towards, say, the high school I went to or the university I went to.
You want to see them do well.
Yeah, because I mean that's part of who you are, but then I'm just not fanatical about it, and because to me the fanaticism reduces the enjoyment of sports.
I agree 1,000%.
And part of that, we're going to get into that a little bit as we talk about the NBA here in a little while, because I think the fanaticism, going back to what you were saying about the immediate emotional response that's available to people right now on social media and that kind of stuff, takes away a lot of the fun for all of us who are just interested in the game itself.
Not a lot of filters.
No. And, that's the loud people have, the squeaky wheel has always gotten the grease.
I agree.
It's just that the megaphone is much larger than it used to be for them, I think.
Yeah, and that's where, rational people also need to be heard.
Yeah, they do.
And reasonable people, and that's the people I listen to the most. It's not the blowhards, the people who talk just to hear themselves talk.
Yeah.
It's people who I think are a little bit more level-headed, or the people that I listen to. Unfortunately, their voice sometimes get drowned out a lot.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Now, real quick, I thought that Gary West's one salient point was the number of horses in the race.
I disagree.
Because the others don't have, 14 is a limit for the other races,
That's correct.
predominantly speaking.
You're right.
But I did wonder if that's part of the issue,
It is when you lose,
Well-
and you get disqualified.
Well, I mean, but maybe that's part of the issue. Greater. I'm not really big into horse racing, so I'm not.
Most people that complain with that are the horses that get lost in the traffic.
Yeah,
He should have no complaint. He was in the lead,
yeah,
and his horse is the one that, it's like you change. It's not like you change one lane. Just go on the interstate when there's 3 lanes, and you go from the inside all the way across to the far lane without looking.
Yeah.
And see what that can cause.
Yeah, his horse, he's the kind of...
20 horses have nothing to do with this one. Nothing.
His horse
Zero.
is the kind of horse that does not use a turn signal to change lanes on the interstate.
I mean, the horse it either shied away or whatever, but, to throw in the 20 horse argument on this one is not relevant, in my opinion.
All right, well, this is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag on ESPN Radio 1230.
Well, John, the 15th District softball bracket is set because they're all done with their games, and Barron County is 6-0 in the district, so they're the number 1 seed. Glasgow's 0-6 in the district. They're the 4 seed. That leaves Allen and Monroe in the 2-3 slot. Allen's in the 2 slot and Monroe's in the 3 slot. I guess that doesn't really matter. But all of those district tournament games will be played on Tuesday, May 21st at Allen County Scottsville, because Barron's graduation is on the 20th. And so a lot of times those games would have been played on Monday. They play doubleheader always in that softball, but they're moving them back to Tuesday for that. They'll turn around and play the championship game on Wednesday. And then the baseball isn't quite set, but we kind of know how it's going to work out, because mostly Monroe is 1-4. Now, they did beat Glasgow last week, but they're not going to catch up with Glasgow because Glasgow's 3-2. So they play again tomorrow, those 2 teams, Glasgow and Monroe. Allen beat Barron last week. Those 2 teams play again tomorrow. Right now, Allen is 4-1 in the district, and Barron is 2-3.
Allen is 4-1 in the district and 7-14 overall.
Yeah, I don't know if they've played a tough schedule or they just saved the one pitcher they have for all of their district games, which would not be surprising.
Well, I'm sure they played Allen normally plays some of the Bowling Green schools in Franklin and our district. I don't know if they're playing St. X and Trinity all the time, but,
No.
But 7-14 and 4-1 in the district is I'm not for sure what that means.
Yeah, that's sort of like when you in the preseason of college basketball, before everybody gets into their conference tournaments, you will see these Mississippi Valley teams, or SWAC teams
have losing records.
Yeah, they'll be like 2-10 or whatever, but then that's because they're they're on the road playing everybody else, and then you get to the end of the season and they may be 20-12. They may be the best team in the SWAC by far or something like that. It kind of looks like that for Allen County to some degree. Now I don't know what I don't know if that's a good statement about the 15th district in baseball, though, because that doesn't sound very good.
I agree with that. Yes. Now, Glasgow is – if Allen defeats Barron tomorrow, we know this in baseball, they will be the number 1 seed because they'll be 5-1 in the district, and Glasgow right now is 3-2.
Yeah.
So Glasgow will not be able to catch them.
Right.
So if Allen wins tomorrow against Barron, it will be Allen and Monroe in the first round of the district.
Yep.
And Barron and Glasgow.
Yep. And then whomever Barron plays, they will play on Tuesday, May 21st in the first round of the district.
And the other team plays on Monday.
Yep, that's right. The other game is on Monday. Usually they would break that up, so maybe the 1-4 is on Monday and the 2-3 is Tuesday, but because of the graduation.
And the baseball district will be, you're talking about even. It can it could any of the 4 can come out. It seems like Glasgow's the best team. They're 13-9.
Yeah.
They've had quality wins at times. You know, they just beat Franklin last week, and they got some other good wins, but they've got some head-scratching losses. You know, the loss to Monroe, which was 13-12.
Yeah.
Monroe, I think, was up 12-4 going into the last inning, and Glasgow put up 8 in the last and had runners on. You know, so Glasgow is probably the biggest puzzle of everybody. Their wins have had good wins, but just I wrote down their last 5 games.
Yeah.
They defeated Metcalf 19-5, defeated Metcalf 18-6, lost to Monroe 13-12. Mm-hmm. And probably the most incredible game of the year in high school baseball, they lost to Russell County 30-24.
They were up 15-1, I think, in the 3rd inning of that game.
I did not know that. See, I wish I knew more about it. I just know when you score 24 runs in baseball and you lose by 6, that's kind of hard to fathom. So they were up 15-1 and lost.
Yeah, here's the thing about that game too.
Wow.
The stat line.
I think they hit like 5 home runs too.
Yeah, so the stat line, the two teams combined, I think, for 51 hits, which I think is a new state record.
Probably took 5 hours to play.
Probably did. They also each committed 3 errors. I don't know what the walks were.
3 errors is not bad.
No, I mean, especially, because usually if you're going to see a team put up 30 runs, it's going to be a lopsided game, and the other team was kicking the ball all around the yard.
30-6, something like that, against a team that's just totally outclassed.
Yeah, so you just do not see 30-24 because you just usually you don't in.
You never see it in baseball. Let's
No,
just be honest with you. 30-24 is a slow pitch softball game.
Look, I bet you if they played girls basketball against each other, that might be the score of that basketball game.
Yeah. The last couple, that's true.
So I mean, it is as you point out, it's an amazing game. But then they come back and they beat Franklin Simpson 5-3.
5-3, and Franklin Simpson beat the number 1 team in the state last week, St. X.
Yeah.
Glasgow's kind of hard. The one thing I know about Glasgow is they've proven they can hit.
Yeah.
I mean, they're top of their order in particular. You know, Franklin is hitting the heck out of it. Abernathy's hitting. Sorrell is hitting. Mm-hmm. I mean, they've got some kids that can hit.
Yeah.
The question with Glasgow is, do they have enough pitching? Because they rarely shut out people. You don't see a lot of 2-1 or 1-0 games.
Yeah.
So, but they can hit, and that's a good sign for them. But that is a wild week. Being 30-24. I'd like to have more. The 15-1. I did not know that.
They were killing Russell County.
Well, they were just then. If it was up 15-1, all they had to do is hold them that half inning, and it would have been a run rule. So that's incredible. Barron is 7-14, 2-3 in the district, but they actually have played well in the last 2 weeks. They're losing. They're opposite of Glasgow.
Yeah, they are.
They're losing 2-0, 1-0, 3-1, 4-2, things like that. Their pitching has really come on, and they're getting healthy too. They're getting all their pitchers back. They just have trouble scoring.
Yeah. So the district tournament, the district baseball tournament, is going to be a sight to see, I think, because.
Well, it's a sight to see in terms of any team could win.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is even though Monroe, when you get right down to it, of the 4 teams, I think Monroe is 4th.
Though they're 10-10 and beat Glasgow.
Yeah.
Lost to Barron twice.
Yeah, so I mean, you just can't. I mean, it's a second year in a row in this district, at least second year in a row, and maybe even the 3rd year in a row. When you get to the district tournament, there's all bets are off.
Yeah, there's not a dominant team. And to be honest with you, there's not a team right now that I think anybody feels like is top even 5 in a region.
Yeah. No, the district is kind of thin. I mean, we started out pointing out the Allen County Scottsville record. I mean, you're 4-1 in the district, but you've only won 3 other games.
That's right.
I don't care what your competition is. That is kind of amazing.
Right. I mean, we've said it all year. I mean, Logan, Franklin, and then Bowling Green, Greenwood, South Warren, and Russell County, it looks like are the best teams. And then you probably put us, one of our, probably I'd say Glasgow is probably next.
Yeah. I would guess that first round of the district tournament for Barron. Now, I would say this, though. I don't think I'd want to play Barron in that first game.
Yeah, because you're going to go against Justin Combs, who can beat you.
Yeah, you're going to get him, and if Gillen is healthy, and they need to close the game. Now they have a guy who can come in there if Combs gets into that sixth inning and probably can close the door on you.
Yep.
And that's been the problem for Barron this whole season is Combs has done well. He's done well for 6 innings, but then he's had to come out, or they've taken him out, and whomever has slid in there after him has struggled. But if they got the second guy who can get on the mound and just finish the game, then I would not want to face them.
Right.
I think I might say the same thing about facing Glasgow though, because you know that at the top 5 hitters in that batting order can hit the ball over the fence on you, can put the ball into play, and you can look up and be up in the game 5-1 and be down 10-5 just like that.
Yeah, their hitting is quite impressive.
Yeah, so I mean it's really weird.
District softball doesn't quite have the same intrigue.
No,
I mean Barron's 25-3, only team with I'm going to say the only team with a winning record, but now I'm thinking Monroe could be right around that 500 mark.
Yeah,
but Allen is probably the least talented Allen County team in fast pitch softball history because they started off with a bang too.
Yeah,
and so they're down. Glasgow is playing better, though. I think Glasgow's only 5-17 or 18. They did get 2 wins against Adair County last week, so they may have got them 6 or 7 wins. They've been playing a little bit better. But Glasgow's down. Monroe is
they're 13-10, by the way. So
Monroe 13-10. Okay, they get second winning. But Barron is going to be hard to handle.
Yeah,
they've the only team that's that's in the region. Well, Russellville, they split with Russellville, and of course East beat them 12-0.
Yeah,
but Barron looks like top 3 team in the region.
well, and I don't know if they put stuff on their billboard or on their their dugout or whatever over there, but the coaches poll came out today for softball in Kentucky, and Warren East is still number 2, which is not surprising.
Right.
South Warren is number 17.
Okay.
Barron not even a vote.
Okay.
So if they like to put things on their dugout, as a let's not
motivation.
Forget this moment,
Yeah.
that might be a good one because they beat South Warren last week.
Right. They did.
And I'm not sure that South Warren is better than Greenwood.
I agree. Part of that is who sees you.
Yeah.
Playing in some of the bigger tournaments. I think South Warren has played in one of those.
Yep.
And South Warren's been to the state tournament recently, too. So they've
Right.
got a little bit more cachet, I guess you could say, than Barron.
Yeah. But it would indicate that the coaches who vote in the poll don't really pay attention to what's going on around
Probably
the state
not.
to some
But,
degree.
the big tournament this weekend in Bowling Green. Number 1 team in the state, Male's coming in, Lafayette's coming in, McCracken County is coming in.
Yeah.
A lot of big teams will be in this weekend.
Yeah, that'll be a good one. Maybe people should get over there and check out some games.
Yep.
Well, this is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the NBA playoffs.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag on ESPN Radio 1230.
Well, John, for one, I kind of enjoyed the NBA playoffs with the sound off because some of these teams outside of maybe the Houston Rockets, which drive me a little bit nuts, actually are playing good basketball, like quality-looking basketball. It's not the old just pick and roll or big man backing you down, that kind of stuff.
Or isolation. I think it's the big thing. It's not the only team that isolates is Houston.
Yeah.
And I hate watching them play. I know. They run the same. That's why they won't beat Golden State is after a while if you see the same play for 7 games, they don't have a lot of things to go to other than James Harden.
Yeah.
Dribbling the air out of the ball and then taking a shot.
But by the way, tonight after we get done here at 5:30, we're going to have the NBA playoffs on ESPN.
But you're right. It is offensively. They do a lot of good things.
Yeah.
A lot more people are involved with the ball. It's not just all screen roll, but there's back cuts and. I like how Milwaukee plays. I like how Boston plays, especially when Kyrie Irving's not on the floor. I like Philadelphia runs a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
I tell you what, the Denver Portland series, it's been fantastic to watch.
Oh yeah.
Unbelievable. 4 overtime game.
Oh yeah.
In which Portland defeated Denver and give Denver credit. They came back less than 48 hours on the road and turned the tables and beat them.
Yeah.
And that has been a really interesting series to watch.
Yeah, two players that I actually enjoy watching are in that series. Nikola Jokic, who is a 7 foot.
He's a point. A few years ago that we introduced the point forward.
Yeah.
He's a point center. He really is, and I've never seen one like that. He initiates the offense. He's a 7 foot center that he's their leading assist person.
Yeah, he is.
I've never seen a player like him, to be honest. Bill Walton back in the 70s and 80s was a great passer, but that was mainly from the low block.
Yeah,
he does everything oftentimes from the high block, and he sees the place. He's Larry Bird-like in terms of what he sees. He's an incredible player.
He is. If we had ever actually seen Arvydas Sabonis in his prime, if the Soviet Union had not denied his ability to come to the NBA when he was in his early 20s, we would have seen this player before, because Arvydas Sabonis, when he finally made it in the NBA as a 7 foot center playing for the Trailblazers, you could see all the creativity a big man like that could have, and plus, he was one of the early days of a guy who could step out and shoot the ball from outside as well, and then make those passes from outside. But of course, we never really got to see him here in the States play because by the time he got here, his knees were bad and that kind of stuff. But yeah, Jokic. So in terms of actually seeing one in the NBA,
and Damian Lillard from Portland, I assume, is the other part you're talking about.
Yes, and the reason I like him is because that dude is just tough.
Yeah, I agree, and great shot maker.
Yeah,
and the other reason I like that series, it's 2-2 and it's fantastically played, is you don't see a lot of complaining.
No,
those guys play.
Yeah.
The whining series, and that's the only thing I don't like about the NBA right now.
Yeah,
it's getting back to the whining and complaining. Of course, Golden State and Houston are. I wish both teams could lose. I used to like Golden State because I loved how they played. They spread the ball around and do a lot of things I like. I still like Stephen Curry. But good gracious, you're talking about whoever loses gets cheated. That's just the way that series goes.
Yeah,
flops and this and that, and it's hard for me to watch that series. But the other series, it's kind of been neat to watch.
Yeah. Now I will say this: ever since Kevin Durant got over his little deal with Patty Mills or whatever in that first round series after the game 2, he's been a lot of fun to actually watch in this series. And you mentioned Larry Bird just a minute ago, and I actually would say that Kevin Durant is the most Larry Bird-like player in terms of what he's doing on the court, because he's a 6'10" guy with range, and he is an excellent passer and a good ball handler. He's not really, you think of him as being explosive, but really when you get down to it, he's not really that explosive. He just happens to be 6'10".
Right.
He's just as capable of doing everything he wants to do with the basketball. But I'm with you though. I would like to hear nothing from him or James Harden for the rest of the playoffs. I don't care. I don't want anybody to ask him a question. I want him to come to the podium and I want crickets, because I just don't care what he has to say. I enjoy watching him play the game, and I'm not interested in all the other nonsense that goes on. And part of that is a product of the questions he's asked. I was listening to post-game press conference, and reporters from different outlets were asking the coaches and the players about the officiating in the series. Well, I mean, if you're asking those questions, then they're kind of obligated to provide some form of answer, because if they don't answer, they're going to get roasted.
I'll just say, calls are the calls.
Yeah.
You get some you like and some you don't.
Yeah, they could walk away from it. That is true.
I mean, you can answer it that way. I mean, there were certain calls I like, but ultimately, it is what it is.
But I was really.
But I'm talking about the
questions.
Complaining during the game.
Oh yeah. You can hear them and one on the floor and all that.
It's just constant, and I blame the referees partly. They shouldn't put up with it.
Yeah,
and that would stop some of it. But it's ultimately the NBA's deal too. I mean, I'm sure they want their officials to show some patience. But after a while, that series, the rest of the teams, you don't see Milwaukee do that.
No.
Even Philadelphia doesn't do that much. My boy
Joel Embiid.
Yeah, he has fun out there. I don't see him doing a lot of complaining to the officials, to be perfectly honest with you. It's really the two marquee teams in the league are Houston, Golden State, and LeBron, who's not playing. are the ones that do most of the complaining.
I tell you, that's another series. The Toronto-Philadelphia series is a lot of fun to watch.
It is.
Because there's another guy, Kawhi Leonard, who doesn't say anything.
No, great player.
Man,
top 3 player in the league.
He's another guy can do anything on the floor with the basketball, and he just knows. You can tell as he's playing the game, his intellectual ability with the game is just superior to a lot of other people.
Yes.
And it's not how he handles the ball. He just puts himself in places to make good plays.
He just got weird last year with San Antonio because San Antonio had been the perfect fit for him. And
Yeah.
It was until all that stuff, and then of course he got an uncle involved and all that other stuff, and he basically just sat out the whole year and forced to trade because he said he wasn't going to re-sign, and so that's how he's in Toronto for this year. He won't be after this year.
No, I do think Toronto is proving it's not a market for a superstar.
Well, I don't know if he wants that. I mean, he looks like to me he doesn't want a lot of that stuff. He wants to be close to home, which I guess is fine, and that's Los Angeles, that area. And it's not going to be the Lakers. I think he's going to the Clippers.
I would not be the least bit surprised by that. I think he would be a good fit with the Clippers.
Yes.
But then back to the Philadelphia series, they picked up Jimmy Butler after he basically called all the guys in Minnesota soft.
Right.
And he may not have been wrong.
He's playing well.
He is. There was an exchange between he and Embiid last night, I think it was. That was fantastic.
Yeah, he wants him to shoot more.
Yeah, he told him at one point, "Take us home, big guy."
Right.
Which kind of demonstrates to me something about Jimmy Butler that has always been overlooked, that I think is actually true of him, is that he's just does not have patience for people who do not focus on winning.
I agree.
I mean, that's what he's there for. I mean, and people do not like his answers, but there's no doubt the only thing he's interested in is winning.
Yeah, his tactics can be a little weird. What he did at Minnesota kind of took me back a little bit. But I always thought he was a really good player that played extremely hard. And I never thought he was selfish. And what he did in Minnesota I didn't like, but I always thought he's a good teammate for the most part.
Yeah.
When he plays on the floor, I'm really not for sure why he acted such a I don't know.
Because he didn't want to be in Minnesota.
Yeah, but
that's the bottom line.
There's ways to handle that, though, and what he did was, I thought, unacceptable.
Well, if you think about it, part of what happened was all of that stuff happened in practice initially, and somebody then talked about what had happened in practice. So if we think back 20 years ago or 30 years ago when Michael Jordan is punching people in the face in practice, if people are coming out and talking about that immediately afterward, that colors our perception of him.
Yeah, but Michael Jordan didn't want to be traded.
No, he did not want to be traded. Now he was willing.
Michael Jordan wasn't forcing his way out.
No, he was forcing the organization to get rid of people that he didn't want on that team.
No, the people he kept. Steve Kerr.
That's true.
They kept that.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
I guess it was Steve Kerr.
Yeah.
And Luke Longley was the other guy.
Yeah, they kept him. Yeah, they were both good players for him.
Yeah, so maybe I'm wrong about that, but I do think though that it still would have colored our perception of him if it was today. Well, this is Brown Sports Bag, brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag on ESPN Radio 1230.
Well, John, round 2 of the federal government's case against several college basketball hangers-on has
assistant coaches too.
Many assistant coaches wrapped up in this. There are 3 main guys that worked AAU circuit, worked for Adidas, and in other ways around college basketball, around potential college basketball players more so than anything. The second phase of this is wrapped up today. The prosecution and the defense gave their closing arguments, and now it's on to the jury. I guess we'll see what they come back with. This is related to bribery, and this is like the cold, hard cash of the fact, not the implications of fraud or whatever. So it's how much money did you give these players, how much money did you give their families, what coaches at what universities knew, what assistant coaches knew, what universities are implicated to be involved via the fact that they had coaches on their staff that were involved in this. So that's where this one is, I think, more at the meat of the matter than, say, the case that wrapped up in November or whatever it was. Because this is people's names and the money attached to their names in this situation. And right off the bat, Clemson had an assistant coach whose name came up in this as being part of this deal, and they got rid of him.
Caught him on tape.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he was recorded. 2 FBI agents were recording some of these conversations that people
Well, good
were
for
having.
Clemson.
Yeah,
Well, there's been one other school that's done that. It's Louisville.
right. Yeah, they got rid of everybody.
It's got to be rid of everybody.
Yeah, they,
So Louisville, and they did not have Patino on tape,
right.
but the Clemson is so far is basically the only one.
Mm-hmm.
LSU, no, they reinstated their coach who's on tape.
Yeah, and I guess here's the deal.
Sean Miller was again second time, right?
Yeah.
Second time was on tape. He's the head coach of Arizona, and
Now, I don't know
survived.
in that case if it's the same evidence represented in this
I don't know.
trial. It could be that. So it may be the same incident, just a second revealing of it.
Right.
And I would say that the first.
the Auburn assistant Chuck
Yep.
Person pled guilty.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, because I think we've had 2 or 3 assistant coaches at
All
various
pled-
programs who have pled guilty, and I'm guessing they became cooperating witnesses at that particular point in time.
Right.
As usually is the case in those kinds of cases.
Right.
So, but what I find, I think, most fascinating about this is, to me, that this puts the NCAA infractions folks in the center of a bullseye.
What hands the case to them on a platter?
It should,
I
but
mean-
then you're left with the question: is how are they going to deal with this?
I don't understand that. What's the difference? They suspended Bruce Pearl when he was at Tennessee for having a cookout at his house when it was not against when it was during the dead period.
Yeah, well, you remember the
He
guy
was
who was
making
at
every-
Utah years ago got in trouble for buying a kid a cheeseburger.
Calvin Sampson at Indiana got suspended for illegal text messages.
Yeah,
So
outside the recruiting window. I
so
think
a
is what it was.
$100,000 bribe that's to me 100,000 times worse than those incidents.
Yeah.
So I don't know how the NCAA does not put these schools on major sanctions.
Mm-hmm.
Major. I mean, when you're paying a kid to come to school by giving their family a bribe, that's at the heart of the NCAA rules violations.
Yeah. So the question, though, is how many programs are going to wind up totally affected by this by the time it's all said and done?
Depends on if you fight them. If you fight them, you end up winning.
Yeah, and therein lies the real problem.
That's correct.
here, Because
Ask Louisville, who cooperated.
yeah, and North Carolina who
did not. That's correct.
You know, and basically the message has been sent. I mean, I think the message is do not cooperate with the NCAA, which causes a real problem because the whole nature and existence of the NCAA is based on the fact that these institutions have agreed to cooperate for the better of everyone.
That's correct.
To have amateur sports, to have college athletics.
But we see that everywhere.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen in, you have all this issues with high schools, AAU, the owner of a horse in the Kentucky Derby who clearly fouls now. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
Where it's and the other thing that hurts the NCAA is how much do you think people care?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Does bribing players, does that bother you?
Well,
it bothers me. I think it's ethically horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible. And but for most people, the true fan of LSU or Kentucky or Louisville, do you think it bothers them?
Mm-hmm.
Do you really think that it really bothers them, or do they just want to have a good football and basketball team?
They think everybody else is doing it, so why shouldn't we?
That's correct.
And that is basically the governing of the college athletics at the moment. If everybody else is doing it, then we need to as well because it's all about winning.
Then it's unstoppable then.
Well,
With that philosophy.
but see, therein lies, I think, the problem the NCAA faces is that do they have the ability to really crack down on these programs and the coaches who are involved and the people who are not even actually under their purview? Can they do enough to set them aside so that they can't interfere with college athletics?
They can when an assistant coach is paying bribes.
Well, that is true, but so many of these
Oh.
people involved in this don't work for the NCAA or do not work for a university.
What did they do to Louisville?
Wow.
Took away their banner, their championships, their games, fined them $25 million, put them on probation.
Well, all that is very true, and that means that Louisville is a willing participant in the NCAA's way of doing
Then
business.
maybe we should give Louisville credit.
I think we probably should give Louisville credit, and I don't mean
rather than making fun of them or whatever. Maybe they actually once they cooperated and accepted the penalties.
They did, and here's the other thing they did. They cleaned house.
They did.
The fans of Louisville may not like that because they may like having Rick Pitino as their coach or
I did,
or anybody else as their coach.
But it was time to go.
Yeah, but the truth be said, they had a moment where they had to flip the script, as they say, on how people were perceiving Louisville, and they did it. And that means they could clean the plate and just move forward from there. The problem here is that I don't think the NCAA has a way to actually do that. I don't think they have a mechanism in place if a program is uncooperative or a university is uncooperative to make them clean the plate and start over.
Well, they don't have to let them play in their tournaments.
Well, I mean, look, they've only applied the death penalty once to a football
No, I'm
program.
saying in their tournaments.
True.
Sure.
That is true.
Go ahead. If you want to play your games, fine, but you're not eligible for our NCAA playoffs. You're not eligible for our NCAA tournaments. If that's what you want to do, go for it.
But as you and I have discussed before, part of the problem there is you wind up punishing people who have nothing to do with it, players and coaches. So you got to figure out, you got to figure out a system, a different way of doing this system that you can start to weed out the influence of outside parties and the willingness of these coaches to cooperate because they don't have a choice in some way. When I say they don't have a choice, what I mean is if Will Wade at LSU does not manage to do well, his team does not finish at the top of the SEC, he gets the job, keep the job for 2 years.
Okay, tough. All right.
But,
so you take a $5 million buyout.
Well,
that's tough. I mean, I feel bad for him.
But he's not. He's definitely. He may like that $5 million buyout, but he's probably in the job because he wants to coach.
Well, don't cheat. I mean, there comes a time where you got to have. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, there has to be a point in time where, I'd like to be the coach at Louisville.
Yeah.
But if it requires me taking bribes and cheating and things like that, I don't want to do it.
Right. Well. But I
mean, the women's game gets along pretty well. They don't have quite the money scandals that are going on now. I know there's dirt in women's game, but not near as much as men's basketball and college football.
Well, you just pointed out the problem. They don't have the money that they have to deal with. And, I mean, to me, that's always the end issue. As long as the capital is at a certain level, then the temptation, humans are just weak people. I mean, the temptation is to do whatever is necessary to get the money.
And that's why you have to have rules.
Yeah.
That's why, this is not, the state of nature where there's no government, no rules, do whatever you want to. That's where you have to have strong people, and you have to be strong, just like the stewards at Churchill Downs, because you're going to get hammered, you're going to get criticized. The referees, you better be unbelievable strong, and the NCAA needs to be strong, and they need to be transparent and strong.
That's, I think, one of the problems the NCAA has had is that it hasn't been transparent enough and it has not been strong enough.
That's correct.
It has not said, from the way I look at it, has not said to these institutions, you agree to be a part of this. If you decide to violate the rules, you are now saying you do not want to be a part of it.
The whole system is screwed up when your football and basketball coaches are making 10 times more than the president of the university. When they're making $5-6 million and your president's making $200,000, that's wrong. When kids are paying $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a semester to go to school, that's wrong. That's where all the you can take all the money that the SEC and spread it out among the colleges, and you wouldn't have to be paying $5,000-$6,000 to go to school a semester.
Well, and the funny thing about that is they are charged on top of that an actual athletics fee.
That's correct.
Which these places are getting tons of cash in other ways, but they're still charging the students. When I went to college, I got to go to the games for free. They didn't charge me an athletics fee, and they didn't make nearly as much money then.
That's hypocrisy.
Yep. This is Brown Sports Bag, brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be back next week. Stick around in 30 minutes. There are a couple of NBA playoff games coming your way.
Thanks for listening, and be sure and join James and John once again next Monday at 4 for the Brown Sports Bag, a local weekly sports machine presented by McDonald's of Glasgow.
This is WCDS Glasgow, ESPN Radio 1230, your total sports leader.